This is the sort of thing that I do. I will talk in much more detail about these things. I'm an author, I speak a lot of things, I make podcasts, I kind of create stuff and curate, and I contribute to various magazines as well. I create dark, entertaining and subversive things which call upon the virtues of a simpler past and anticipate various personal apocalypses. As such, I have a unique perspective, I think, on the critical future themes and a fascination with the benefits and charms of obsolete technologies. I work with stories, printed matter, science fiction themes, live performance, humour and code. It's also, crucially for today, involves a kind of human chemistry, which we've all been sort of talking about or alluding to, I think. I make things rapidly with real people in the real world, physical manifestations which, through their physicality, challenge our preconceptions about what's possible. But let's start at the beginning. So this is a kind of arrangement of, I don't know, sort of subconscious snapshots of my childhood, I suppose. I've since written interactive fiction books, and I do a lot of retro coding art and things like this. But it all started because as a child I had access to the machine in the middle, which is an Acorn Electron, one of the early home computers in the 80s. That's somebody else's child pretending to be me, and a photo I stole from the internet. And I had the access to these text adventure games, which were highly imaginative, highly interactive, and kind of called upon you to put everything into it, really. Like, you were just given a blank screen with a sort of prompt, and you had to bring your imagination very often to even, you know, there were no graphics. The graphics were all in your head as well. Repton, I can't remember why I put that there. I just liked it. It was a good game. And obviously impossible to finish as well. It was one of those 80s games that had a bug that meant that you could never actually finish it. I was pleased to find out recently. So I think you guys have been exemplifying a kind of new kind of exploration that deliberately defies categorization. So because we're all interested in challenging existing assumptions about the way to do things, this talk isn't going to be about what I've learned, but how I've learned. Right now, I think that might be more interesting to you. There is currently a drive to drill our younger generation up into an army of coders, and certainly the classroom teaches you something. But none of the stuff I've ever done well, nothing that I've ever made really satisfying progress on, has come from a competitive school environment or even a school club. Everything has been powered by an irrational drive to create, a real excitement about making stuff, that feeling of being handed the raw tools for building new worlds. But there's something else. There is something uniquely motivating about making without permission. So fast forward to 1992, I took part in a competition at school. This is kind of the beginning, and some would say end, of my creative technology career. We had to make a design for an Easter card with using a very, very simple graphics program. I think it was Logo or something like that. And everybody was just sort of drawing these Easter eggs and stuff, and then they would get printed out and displayed on open day in the computer room. My friend Sarah, who was a sort of maths prodigy and now designs satellite for, works with satellites for air traffic control stuff, we worked together on this art project, and we worked out how to create an animation. So we had these, and it was like a space, for some reason it was an Easter card, and we had this space-themed animation of all these aliens. We made them all sing. And anyway, it was a competition, and we won massive bar of chocolate each, which was amazing. Yeah, it was like a really, really kind of sort of seminal moment for me, I suppose, and it really stands out as a really exciting thing. But the thing is, we didn't sort of plan to win. We weren't really working towards that. We were working to, because it was so much fun. Like, we spent every lunchtime in the computer room for, I don't know, 2 weeks maybe, hour, and maybe after school as well, just hours creating this and trying to work out how to do it. It was so exciting. So anyway, the point being that I learned as a kind of side effect of my desperation to create cool stuff. I think one of the reasons we lack many female technologists is because women gradually mute these solitary childhood passions. Part of the answer is then to make hobbies okay for their own sake. and to make so-called childlike drives to create okay, and to recast technology for what it is, because it's not a special nerdy man-child pastime or a secret kept by 20-something rock stars. No, technology is just another tool. It's just a really exciting way to make your creative or artistic dream into a reality. As you can see, I had a go at launching a sort of roof club to get kids to do something that would actually stand them in good stead and help me personally. The point is, technology is a creative tool, so you have to get into it with your heart open to the possibility of realizing a vision. People don't get into things with their heart and soul because they'll pass an exam in it. People get into things because they're productive, exciting, and off the record. The fun stuff is the stuff your parents don't know about. The choice doesn't have to be between chasing approval and courting disapproval. You can cut the rest of the world out entirely, and that's kind of what this talk is about. This is some of the things that I've done. So after the last 7 years or so, I've created humour websites and books, subversive columns and animations for BBC Comedy, talks and events about science fiction concepts, 8-bit graphics art, a collection of photographs of IBM cash registers, which was mapped onto plotted onto a map and featured in the Daily Mail, and I don't know, it was ridiculous. It's good times. Hacked printers that send messages from parallel universes, and other injections of fantasy into creative technology. In 2012, I took part in something called the Happenstance Project in Sheffield, which some of you probably know about. It was a little bit like this, started up by one of the same people that founded this project that you're all doing. And just had an amazing time and ended up moving to Sheffield. But the idea was that they would put people with some technical skills into, I say that like rather than all expert technologists, some technical skills into arts institutions to see how technology processes could impact on the arts world, really, and the institutions. So, and we had these budgets to buy stuff, and it was really good fun. We worked with them on kind of practical things like finessing their processes a little bit, and one of the directors at the site gallery had 2 laptops that she carried around, one of which had no memory and the other of which had no battery, so she needed both of them at all times, so we sorted that out. And we bought lots of stuff, like, I mean, this is how the art world runs as far as I know. We bought these thermal printers, which we called Kathy and Heathcliff, and we took them on a tour and made a film about it and stuff. We kind of called on our network, so we had that's a drawing machine sort of slowly becoming sentient. Yeah, we made the printers Nyan for a number of, we rickrolled the drawing machine. We just had a great time. But also, I think, again, as with your project, it was all about the relationships that came out of it. And me and James still work together, still friends. We still get work from the gallery. But there's just kind of an ongoing connection. And all the people who took part in this, there were 6 of us actually in different galleries around the UK. And we all still know each other and sort of bonded over it. So it's like had an amazing sort of long tail over the last 3 years. It's been really, really cool. But I think it took a while for people to realise what the impact was going to be, so it's very difficult to speak about it too soon. Anyway, in 2013, all of this culminated in the founding of my creative collective, Hack Circus. It's a quarterly magazine and live show. There's magazines on the table in the middle there, and there's only a few, so if you can't get one and you would like a free PDF of it, take a card or look me up, and I'll certainly send you one. It's a modern reinvention of circus using technology and science concepts, but in a very new way. We have an increasingly immersive and experimental quarterly live show where we examine exciting themes from the outer edges of science and technology. But the physical manifestations are only a small part of the point. There is much more to it. While we could still be Hack Circus without a live show, for example, we couldn't be Hack Circus if we ever repeated ourselves or favoured usefulness or indeed uselessness over emotional impact. So, there's pictures of the magazine. That's it. The first 4 had this sort of stripy thing, and now we have illustrations on the covers. Some of the things that are inside, so it's been described as Make Magazine meets the Fortean Times, or the New Scientist crossed with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's playing with art and tech, but in a sort of not quite knowing what's real, and fantasizing and imagining, This was about how to tell if you're actually, are you real, or are you just part of somebody's computer simulation who's just kind of a brain in a jar hooked up to a simulation somewhere. And I think the conclusion of this article was that the chances are actually it's highly likely we are just simulations, so that's fine. You can just kind of do whatever you want. That was the Arecibo message as a knitting pattern, which the artist then knitted and lent us for a show. Anyway, various things. Yes. So we cover projects and ideas from the edges of possibility and sometimes taste. This is a design for a roller coaster that can kill you. It's the Euthanasia Coaster by Julian S. Urbanus. So obviously he had this idea that was very dark and cool, and then had to justify it by saying, no, it's a good thing because it's for people who would normally, go to Dignitas or whatever. They can just all get in the roller coaster, and then you get 40 dead bodies coming out the other side a couple of minutes later. So it's a functioning, deadly roller coaster design. He's made a model for it and everything. It's quite amazing. Hack Circus shows are increasingly theatrical and immersive for performers and audience members alike, with scientists, artists and hackers all having a role to play in not terribly scientific fantasy scenarios. Each show and issue share a theme, and the themes are deliberately reclaiming. It's weirdly easy to forget that science doesn't own the words life, reality or space, so let's put some emotion back into those terms. Last autumn, we dispatched our audience on a sleeper mission into space to investigate an alien signal originating from a distant planet. I sent out invitations to everyone on our mailing list explaining that they, the candidates, had been specially chosen and that we would need £10 from everyone for life insurance. As the show opened, we said an emotional farewell to Earth. A live link video with a real rocket scientist was not reassuring about our survival prospects. I always want to laugh, of course, but more than that, I want to provoke fear and excitement. I always want to play at the edge. So some of these people are real scientists, and some of them are actors, and some of them are artists. But as the crew, we were all united in this kind of illusory, immersive experience. We had an air hostess and a sort of an expert who was telling us, a science expert, astrobiologist, telling us what we're likely to find if we ever get to this planet. Sinead's an amazing artist from Dublin who's been involved in all the Hack Circus stuff, and she created this alien hack-proof radio, Marconi radio thing that you could you bite on a straw and put your fingers in your ears, and you can hear the signal is amplified by your skull, so you can only hear the sound if you put your fingers in your ears. That was on the previous, I think. Yeah, so, whoops, there. So that's somebody demoing that, and everybody was queuing up to have a go on that. There's always an interactive element at the shows where you can go and try something out within the sort of story world. So, as I guess you guys are finding, perhaps, there's always a sort of justify yourself as an angle to this stuff. People are fine with other people doing weird, exhausting, useless stuff, as long as they don't seem to be enjoying themselves too much. But as soon as it starts to look like you're having too much fun, the world wants to know about this loophole that you found. The 9 to 5 craves some sort of justice. Well, my answer is yes, it's fun, it's entertainment, but entertainment has a value, sometimes even an artistic value. Entertainment with creative technology is still a new idea. We're still strangely embarrassed to use creative tech to make ourselves really laugh or really cry. Entertainment that toys with science, shoots for art, or lacks a sceptical or educational agenda isn't really even on our cultural radar yet. We're still feeling out a new territory of artistic, emotional stuff with cutting-edge tech, imagination, and no money. To the extent that we embrace these kinds of projects, the kinds of projects that I do and the kinds of projects that you do, I think we're fulfilling an important role as outsiders. I want to call for a celebration of the trickster in creative technology. You're probably familiar with this archetype, the twinkly-eyed, rule-breaking mischief wreaker with whom you must never strike a deal in a fairy tale. The trickster doesn't respect boundaries, and their intentions cannot be taken at face value. They're also cunning, mischievous, and funny. They shift appearance and even gender and are impossible to pin down. They're jokers, storytellers, revealers of the truth, and game changers. They use their minds and verbal skills when others are throwing their weight, and when all the doors are locked, they still find a way in. When fairy tale kings hold contests for their daughter's hand, it's never the brawniest or wealthiest who wins, but the witty master of disguise. So I found this really good quote about the trickster on a site called Crystal Links, which is kind of amazing. But yeah, he is the wise fool, it is he through his creations that destroy, points out the flaws in our carefully constructed society. He rebels against authority, pokes fun at the overly serious, creates convoluted schemes that may or may not work, which we can perhaps all relate to, plays with the laws of the universe and is sometimes his own worst enemy. He exists to question, to cause us to question, not to accept things blindly. He appears when a way of thinking becomes outmoded and needs to be torn down and built anew. So this trickster character tends to turn up when it's time for change. He is the destroyer of worlds and at the same time the saviour to us all, which I realise implicates me slightly in sort of Jesus complex, but let's move on from that. So when I was growing up and regularly targeted at school for generally being a weirdo, I was advised that it was good to be different, not to be a sheep, that I must choose between a sheep or a shepherd. Well, I think there's a third way. Tricksters need not be evil from every angle. And in fact, in launching Hack Circus, I was motivated to create an original alternative to an unfair, insincere, and incestuous event circuit and to the mainstream technology press. I work with magicians, technologists, artists, and storytellers. I work, in a word, with tricksters. I've always been interested in hacking of every kind, legal, illegal, inventive, technological, social. And I think it's the same impulse that fuels my trickster projects. It's all about repurposing, subverting, and refusing to take no for an answer. Hackers should be doing things they're not supposed to, treading a fine line between paranoia and power. But the commercialization and utilitarian appropriation, even the emphasis on shareability and openness, puts tremendous pressure on the trickster outsider. We are always in danger of giving up our power, our outsider perspective. We should be the mysterious visitor who knocks on the door in the fairy tale, but increasingly we're the ones trapped in the towers. Hackers ought to slip between definitions, defy expectation, switch with the wind, and through all this slipperiness present a genuine threat to damaging or unfair prevailing trends. There will be a price to it because the right-thinking people are not, trust me, they're not the people who pay cash, but I honestly think the absolute best choice you can make if you want to make a difference is to stay different and stay slippery. Does anyone know who this is? No, this is Tim Hunkin. It's I could do the laser pointer. There you go. It's there. He's amazing. He's just so brilliant. He's an artist and sort of entertainer, I suppose. He creates Victorian-style machines, sort of pier machines that you can have a go on. He's got something called the Under the Pier show in Southwold and has recently opened a gallery/arcade in Holborn in London, which I highly recommend you go to if you can. And you just pay a coin and have a go at this amazing satirical thing that he's made. And he's just done so many of them, and they're all brilliant. Some examples. The Small Hadron Collider is his latest one, which he's opening soon. And they've always got these like brilliant Photoshop characters in. So yeah, the small, and the one on the right is is it art machine? So the art critic will tell you whether or not it's art. You put something in the box and it like raises up. And that, pointer again, cool. That is, I think, a little formaldehyde cow thing in a box. So it's like, but is it art? And then he shakes his head or nods if he decides it's art. So they're all just incredibly clever and really good fun. There's a divorce one that's like a house, and you and your partner have to wind the handle really hard to see who wins the house. And divorce simulator. So they're brilliant. Yeah, I think a lot of the people who I work with and who tend to be involved in the shows and who I kind of end up working with and spending time with have these things in common. I think they're modern trickster inventors. I feel like they're compulsively creative. They can't really help making stuff. It's part of their personality. They're not doing it for anyone else particularly. They're not doing it for even really for an audience. They just have to keep going. They often use technology counter to the expectations of the subculture they're even in at the time. So, I don't know, like, for example, Sarah, I don't know if you know Sarah Anglis, some of you might have come across. She's a friend of mine. She's an absolutely amazing roboticist and musician. She plays the theremin, and oh my God, this character, Hugo, is an Arduino powered head which is synced up to her theremin, so when she's playing music it has sound samples in it, and Hugo's mouth opens in time with the sound samples, and it's the most amazing thing, and it's so moving and beautiful and just clever and chilling at the same time. This is Nellie Ben-Hayoun, who's actually in the issue that I've put there. I won't blind you with the laser pointer. Nellie makes amazing witty stuff. She's a sort of designer and artist. And this was a domestic volcano that she created, that you just install this miniature volcano in your living room, and then sometimes it erupts all over your carpet, and you don't have any control over it. This was Dominic Wilcox, who's another brilliant, really funny designer. He's done loads of this sort of thing as well. This is just one of his most recent ones. It's a gold-plated skimming stone, and he created a whole story behind it about how, this guy, one day he found this gold, he found the perfect skimming stone, and so he dipped it in gold, and he knew that one day he would find the perfect mill pond to use it on. And he's designed like a pouch that he just wears all the time, like, I've got my stone in case one day I find the perfect pond. And that's just Simon Munnery, who's just a brilliant comedian, and not really even a comedian. He's so brilliant. He's just a sort of amazingly ingenious artist who is just a fantastic character and creates stuff. I went to some of his shows where he was making the audience wear dunce's caps, and then his jacket would light up, and it was all kind of weird hacks, but so funny. And also quite creepy, again, like with Sarah and like with the volcano. There's always like a darkness. You never really know how much of it is real, and how much of the darkness is coming from them, and how much of it is the performance. So, sort of getting to the end. What's next for Hack Circus? Well, I think, as you can imagine, since the end of, I suppose about a year and a half now, working basically for no money, things are getting a bit tight. Also, I think people should be paying for Hack Circus, and it should be something that I can pay the contributors and the writers and everything. So I think I need to get some money together somehow, so I'm probably going to build up my own profile and get people to pay me for things more, maybe do some more residencies ideally, and yes, so this was pitched to me recently. Why don't we start a Hack Circus R&D thing, some sort of online home for ideas that can then maybe get picked up and developed as a sort of production line. And just an example of some of the ideas that people want to make. So some of these are me, and some of these are my friends. A realistic doll's house where the inhabitants can see you. So if there's a doll's house and their world is real, then when you start approaching the doll's house, they're going to get very frightened and probably start screaming, and you'll probably hear them running away from you and just generally panicking. And there's kind of, where does that end? There's going to be a huge escalation of stuff that I don't know. That might be quite fun to explore. Someone told me a show or exhibition about people being nice to robots. I thought, okay. And then he said, pictures of people happily using self-service checkouts, etc., because one day the robots will take over, and I want proof that I was nice to them. I quite like that. And then I've always wanted to do a suite of satirical Internet of Things idioms visualised, so a sledgehammer that cracks a nut, be quite easy to do, a kettle that only boils when you're not looking at it, maybe a rolling stone that gathers no moss. And then at the moment we're kind of collecting stuff for an exhibition of the multiverse, which is because there's a design your own universe thing in the next issue. So just a few examples of things that we've done. This is in the current issue, which is again this one. It's a it's a kit for building your own personal hell, for the Underworlds issue. It's based on Meadow Hall, so it's called Meadow Hell, which is in Sheffield Shopping Centre, for those who don't know. And this is Jan, again, who did the Arecibo mittens pattern thing. And she just always makes the thing. She designs it, and then she makes it, and it's all for Hack Circus. She's just a fantastic supporter of the whole thing. This is quite cool. I don't know this person, Ruvital Cohn, who I think is quite a respected artist. And they've created a use for retired greyhounds, I suppose, where their amazing lung power can be used to support, to create a new kind of life support machine. It's just a photo, obviously, it's not a real thing. But what a great idea. That was for the Life issue. Now, somebody on the list had worked in New York on the Body and Code exhibition. One of the women, I don't know. Yeah, it's you, is it? Do you know Kate Siccio? Was she on the same thing as you? Kate, no. So Kate has also been in New York working on a dance and code thing, and this was her article about what it's like. She's actually creating choreography from API data, so she's dancing code in a way. So I love that picture. We've got some of these as prints as well. You can buy them on the website. That's the Arecibo message, which was sent into space as a radio signal in the 70s, and it has all the information that presumably the aliens would need to understand something from this. So, you know, oh, it went from there, and then there was a little person, and then there's some DNA helix. These represent the numbers, I think. Anyway, it's a bit outdated now, but we made it into a knitting pattern, and then she knitted them into gloves, and the air hostess wore it on the space show. Oh, this one, no. This one, this is the last one. This is Matt Wescott, who's a fantastic ZX Spectrum artist who does sort of chip tunes and just incredible hacks and stuff. A really nice guy. And this is Sinead again, who's just been involved in all the Hack Circus stuff. Sinead was interested in like the history of mind reading, and we had this Access All Areas theme show in Brighton when I did a residency last year. And Sinead found this some research where people had made I can't remember what it's called, phrenologiscope or something. It was a hoax from Victorian times where they got people to look at a cat or think about a cat, and this machine would read your mind while you were looking at the cat. And it was obviously a photography hoax from the early days of photography. So the final picture that he produced is just like this sort of montage of cat faces, and he's like, it's the essence of cat that we've collected from everybody's like brainwaves. So Sinead bought this thing on eBay or something, which is actually a Brainwave Reader, and did an updated version of this. So during the show, she had it on her head when she was doing her talk, and we had a second screen showing her brainwaves while she was speaking. But we also, during the show, were reading other people's brainwaves while they were thinking about cats, and translated the brainwave data into 3D models, which we were printing on a 3D printer, which just happened to be at the gallery at the time, during the show as well, so people could have their brainwaves printed out into little sculptures. So that's the sort of thing that I do, and that's the end of my talk, so thanks.